The Pasadena Star News ran a special investigation recently that's gotten a lot of attention looking at unsolved homicides in Los Angeles County. The man behind the series, editor Frank Girardot, is here, and tell us about the inspiration. What inspired you to take on? It's overwhelming, this information and this data. So
yes, thanks, and thanks for having me on to talk about it. It's years ago, 3 years ago, I got a series of emails from a woman whose son had been murdered, and they hadn't found the killer. The murder happened in 2002. She asked me, as the newspaper editor and the guy that writes a column, could I look into it? So I said, yeah, sure. And then I thought, well, how much unsolved murder is there in Los Angeles County?
And how much is there?
Well, it turns out that, from 2000 to 2011, there were 4,682 unsolved homicides.
Really?
And to put it in perspective, that almost half of the homicides go unsolved.
Right.
I mean, that's startling.
It shocked us, actually. We got data from the coroner, and then we took it to different police agencies and said, tell us what the status of your investigation is into these cases. And as we went through agency by agency, we just found it was, less than 50%. And it's even worse for people of color and people in communities where there's low economic demographics.
So is there something that's easier to solve, or?
Well, I guess the easiest thing to solve is when husband and wife have a spat and the husband's standing there with a frying pan or a gun in his hand. But not all cases are like that.
Yeah. So what do you think is behind some of the racial discrepancies with the Black and Latino cases?
Well, there's a lot of reluctance from witnesses to participate in investigations and to talk to the police department, and I think that's what the experts have told us time and time again, is that there's a witness reluctance to take part in the investigation because there's a backlash.
Absolutely.
There's tons of of that, and there's cases where a witness will talk to the police, but as soon as they get on stand and trial and they have to look at the defendant eye to eye, they change the testimony, and it changes the nature of how you can do an investigation and whether or not you can actually find an answer in these cases.
And then it's like a vicious cycle, right? Because they can't trust the community to be able to talk as witnesses, and then when the crimes go unsolved, then they don't trust the police.
That is a very great analysis. That's absolutely true. I think that's exactly what happens. It feeds on itself, But it's systemic, right? It's not just in some neighborhoods in LA County. We looked at the entire county. We looked at it from Malibu to Pomona and from Long Beach all the way up to Pasadena, and just consistently found that demographically, economically, there were these huge discrepancies in how police handled homicides and whether or not they were solved.
So how long do they just let them go, or do some of these come back up because of certain issues? I mean,
well, so the detectives always hope that they'll arrest somebody for something minor, and that they'll say to them, "Hey, look, let me go on this, and I'll tell you about that homicide that happened back in 2000 and whatever."
So do we have a better way of documenting them to be able to go back into files?
Well, so the thing about a homicide investigation is that it's open forever.
Right.
So any homicide detective that you talk to has a pretty good memory of their cases. They might handle 100 or 150 cases, but if you call them up and ask, "Hey, how about Tony Ramirez? Can you tell me about that case?" A lot of these detectives have an instant recall, and
because it's probably frustrating to not be able to get completion. Get to the answers.
I think that's why they become police officers to a certain extent too. They want to put away that bad guy. I mean, if they're really a good investigator.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, they want closure, and they want to bring something to those families.
But then it's dangerous too when a prosecutor is intent on bringing it to prosecution. Are they getting the right answer?
Well, so the prosecution is a whole other element of it, and a lot of times they're not even going to bring a case unless they're sure they can.
It has to be strong.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is incredible work. I really appreciate that.
And this is a year-long series that you're going to be doing?
Year-long series in the Star News, Los Angeles Daily News. We're going to look at unsolved homicides, the victims, the consequences, and the whole scope of it.
All right, well, please come back again and tell us more of what you're finding out.
Okay, thank you very much. PasadenaStarNews.com, unsolved homicides.
Thank you.
Well, seniors and social media don't always get along.
Luckily, I have some tips with helping seniors with social networking. In fact, I taught my mom how to use FaceTime recently, and I'll show you how that went when we come back.
Good luck to you.